when the slow-mo camera came out and we found out that you could record yourself doing horsey lips slow-mo.
Nobody's doing that anymore, and that's a shame.
Yeah, what if that's what filled your Instagram reels? It's more entertaining to see of people you know than of other people.
Yes.
Unless it's like a dog shaking or something, which right on cue, Pinkerton shook.
Really. Also, anything with the animals is so funny like that.
Especially what are the type of dogs called again that have the hair texture that it's like coils?
It starts with the K. I know who you're talking about.
They look like... I know who you're talking about.
Yes, so cute.
They're so cool when they shake because it's like whoa, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, and when they prance around in the dog shows, I like that too. What are the horses that have, I mean, I'm sure there are many different types, but have literally such long, crazy, beautiful manes and tails, and they look like freaking
gypsy vanners?
Yes. Someone that I know in Oregon rides one of those horses in shows. She doesn't own this horse, she leases it, which a lot of people do. And wow, her horse is diva. Her mane is crazy.
Yeah, I wonder
just
what
mermaid waves.
Yeah. I wonder what their full routine looks like. What is it that people are saying now when they do a whole body shower with the whole routine? What's that called again?
They're like
everything shower. I wonder what her everything shower looks like. But anywho,
welcome back to the Q&R code with the two of us. Quinn, thank you for gracing us last week with your solo episode. I had so much fun listening, and I was like, I want to be responding to her about the Mule Days things. Particularly, I'm obsessed with the monkey in a barrel.
Yeah, that was awesome.
So cute.
I wish that you could have seen it, and one of the things I'm so grateful to be a person that tends toward not having my phone in my hand and not reaching for my phone. There are moments like that where it would be awesome if I would have taken a video of one of these runs because it was so cute and funny, and a description doesn't do it justice to see just a little tiny kid tucked under their dad's arm loping off on a mule, just bouncing across an arena. But it was really cute, and you would have enjoyed it a lot, and I see that in our future with our kids.
I love that. I see that in my future, and I also see a future where I am gonna have to really find the balance between being a overprotective mom and the right amount of safety, because I'm picturing that right now and thinking about how upset I would be if my husband did that and dropped our kid, and I'd be like, oh, that was so stupid, such a pointless reason to have our kid get actually hurt. But hopefully they are just holding on so tight that would not happen. Maybe the kid has a helmet on. I don't know. I am very concerned about little kids' heads getting conked.
Yeah, I was not concerned watching them about dropping, but I could see how you would feel that way, and there's risk in everything. There's risk in them playing on the monkey bars on the playground. So yeah. It will be hard as a parent to not worry about bubble wrapping, but I think generally, I would rather have my kids outside playing hard, at least I can say that now before having kids, than to have the thought of them being, if you were to go the opposite way, that they're sedentary inside on their little iPads or something,
Well, I definitely don't want that. But today is not a parenting podcast. Today we are talking about my trip to
Iceland.
not Iceland. Opposite side of the globe. Quinn was having a little bit of a confusion moment because our friend Haley Fitzgerald was in Iceland and I was in New Zealand. Clarifying.
I felt no, like, that coming out of my mouth felt totally natural. I didn't think anything of it. Posting the podcast felt totally fine. I don't know that I would have known without my dad texting us and his sweet check-in that you listeners know he does weekly, and was glad to hear about my mule event, and then was saying, quick podcast fact check, Riley did not go to Iceland. And I'm like, Iceland?
It's like, obviously, I know that.
Yeah, I'm like,
Just
duh.
went right over your head, but I went to New Zealand. I would love to go to Iceland.
I'm like, the Maoris, Iceland. You know?
Hopefully next time, or in the future, not necessarily next time we travel, but that Quinn and I can go to Iceland. Seems like a magical spot. Also known for their sheep, like New Zealand.
Yes. Maybe that was the hang-up.
I don't know where to start and how thorough to be because it was just such a cool trip. Big flight, 14-hour flight. I didn't watch a single movie on that flight, which is kind of wild because I was thinking, I'm just gonna try immediately to get on the right routine because I'd heard tell of the difficulty of jet lag. I really didn't want my trip to be spoiled by that, and so my mom said that the best thing to do is, like, as soon as you're on the plane, act like you're in the time zone where you're going to be in. So I wanted to, like, sleep at that time, eat at the times that we'd be eating in New Zealand. Did I sleep well on the plane? No. No, I did not. Did I bring a neck pillow? Also, no. When I was at Quinn's house, she had a neck pillow, and I was like, oh, nice. Okay, I'll bring that. Forgot. That's the only thing I forgot, so no harm, no foul. But yeah, not a great sleep on the plane, but it's a plane ride, whatever. How great are you gonna sleep? Me with the most bitter vibes walking by people in business, just already like laying fully back.
Yeah, I could see spending my money that way if I had all sorts of money to throw around. I could definitely see that on a long flight because as I've gotten older, basically I feel like I turned 18 and the plane rides I started to feel in my body more.
Well, that's a big
and
if because that upgrade was about
trips.
$2,000 per ticket. Mm-hmm. And for just the seats, they also had like a Comfort Plus area that the seats had a little like footrest extender so you can lean back and lift your legs a little, which does sound super nice, but that was even like $500 a seat. So we didn't do that. Maybe down the line we would, but whatever. It was the plane ride. I arrived in New Zealand and was had a great attitude. Didn't feel that great, but we got there, we landed in Auckland, then flew to Christchurch. So Auckland is on the North Island, Christchurch is on the South Island. The South Island is where my sister-in-law, Holland, lives. So we spent our whole time there. We only went through the North Island flying. The South Island is significantly less populated than the North Island, if I was told correctly, like 3 times less populated. The South Island is really cool, lots of rural open spaces. We first went to
around Christchurch?
Not Christchurch. Christchurch is a big city, but we didn't really spend time there. We only spent one day, like not even a full day on either end. So what we saw most of was rural. There are a couple cities like Queensland, it's Queenstown. Queenstown, right? Yeah, Queenstown is also a city, but still has like really cool, crazy natural beauty, and not like skyscraper style city. Christchurch is more like a classic urban area. So it's not that they don't exist, but that's just not like the majority of the space is not dominated by that. And
Cool.
gosh, it was a trip to come from spring to somewhere where it was fall. It's autumn in the southern hemisphere, and the colors were changing. It was so pretty. There was just like such rich golds and reds, and still a lot of green too. That was really cool. Like the fields were all still super green. It wasn't cold yet like winter, and it can be very rainy there, but we only had like 2 days of rain on the very end of our trip. We were really lucky and got to have a nice sunshiny time to tour around, and we drove through a lot of the South Island. We have so much more to see. It's very different driving than across America, where we have highways all over the place and you can pretty much get somewhere like point A to point B usually in a relatively straightforward way, whereas driving there, it's lots of curvy roads, and you have to go around this mountain in roundabout ways, so something that looks on the map like, oh, those are pretty close together, might actually take you 4 hours to get there. And I just am like, there's so much that I could share about it, but I will tell you what stood out to me that I had been looking forward to so much were the birds. I got to see so many different new types of birds. They are so funky and cool. So New Zealand, they have no naturally occurring land mammals except for bats there that were native. Then people introduced other mammals, as aforementioned, sheep, but also some animals that have become a bit of a problem, actually a huge problem on the island, are stoats, which I'm not clear if that's the exact same thing as a weasel, and that's just like the kind of British term for it, or if they're slightly different. It looks like a weasel. Possums, not American possums, Australian possums, which do look different, but I believe are also a marsupial, and rats and mice. And all of these are a big problem for the bird population because they either directly hunt the birds, take their eggs, or are just like using up a lot of the food and resources that the birds would get. They have a lot of ground birds because they used to not have any mammals on the ground to be concerned of, so the birds didn't have to be able to fly away.
Like they're kind of like, they're kind of like chickens.
Yeah, they're kind of like chickens.
Wings, they'll lift off the ground a little bit, but not.
Some of them have even smaller wings than the chickens, where they can't lift off the ground at all. Some of them have these tiny wings that they only like sometimes use for balance. And if I recall,
what are you a bird for?
Kiwi don't really have those at all. Kiwi are literally just like guys with little feet and noses.
That's pretty crazy.
It's just fun. They're so fun and funny. There are just so many super cool birds. One that we really liked is the Kia. It's the world's only alpine parrot, meaning it lives in places where it snows and it gets cold, and they don't mind that. They're this very beautiful green-brown color, and underneath on their wings they have bright orange and blue and like parroty colors, and they're big. They're very big birds.
They are chunky.
They are. They have these really big curved beaks, and they would just sit on top of your car and try to pick at stuff. They're super curious, and we're trying to rip rubber off of our windshield wipers, and they will just chew on the rubber, but they will also just shred stuff up. Brayden and I saw them trying to absolutely yank someone's antenna off of their car, but if you leave anything out, they will mess with it.
So, what do the locals do about that? Everything is just buttoned up?
Yeah, I think you just have to be aware of it and button up. I don't know what you can do about it with your car. Maybe put, I don't know, because where we saw this going on, there were not locals there, there were tourists. We went to the national park and it was very beautiful, but yeah, they somebody did it when we left, when we talked to a Kiwi about it. They said that before now it's like hard plastic that holds in most of our windscreens, as they call a windshield. But before they used to be held on by rubber, and the Kia would just fully pull that off while you were out at the national park, and people would drive away and then have their windshield just fall on them on the drive. Obviously, really don't want that to happen.
That
So,
See, that makes it sense for it to be called a windscreen, because usually being called a windscreen screen feels, maybe it's just a different connotation over there, because screen feels like, yeah, flimsy. Temporarily holding the wind could fall on you.
I think
That would
it's
be a
hard.
trip, just driving around, driving down the road, and in comes your windshield.
Especially in this place where we were, was a very windy, narrow mountain pass area where that would be extremely dangerous and distracting, and I would be very upset to have that happen. We went in a tunnel that went under a mountain to get here. I've never been in a tunnel like this, that you were underground for multiple minutes. I don't know. I don't want to exaggerate, like it wasn't like insane, I guess, but it kind of was. You go under a full mountain. Like, instead of making a pass around it, they dug a tunnel through. I would be so curious to know how and when they did that construction, because it seems like it would be very complicated and difficult. And I felt good. There were a lot of people going through it. It's also kind of hard to trust when you're like, I have a gigantic mountain above my head right now.
Yeah, that's even how it can feel with being driving under an interstate, where
Yeah.
it's like, how? I am sure glad to not be a civil engineer, because that's not something I want in my hands.
Yes. A lot of trust. A lot of trust. But that was on our way to what is such a beautiful area. I was trying to remember all of the Maori terms for the places, but people rarely were using this one. I think it was called Pio Tahe, but something so close to that. But the colonial term for it is Milford Sound, and it was really awesome. A place in Fjordland, that's a national park there, because it's all these fjords, which mean that these valleys were carved out by a glacier, and then the glacier melted, and so it goes out to the sea. Milford Sound is actually a misnomer for it, because they told us when that it was named, there wasn't the English concept. Like, English speaking people didn't know that that was what happened, and we didn't have a word for that. So a sound is a bit of a different thing. It should be Milford Fjord, because it was carved by a glacier, but it's this really cool area with all the waterfalls coming down all around you. It's supposed to be extra exceptional to see it on a rainy day. They said that there are tons and tons more waterfalls when it's raining, but it wasn't raining, so we still got to see some that were really cool. And that's an area where you can see penguins, and of course I was really hoping for a penguin sighting. We did not have one. We grew up somewhere where people like tour to see wildlife and to understand that it's wildlife. You don't get to control when there's a sighting or not. So I wasn't going to cause a scene about it, but I would have loved. They have the type of, why am I forgetting the name for it? What I want to call a macaroni penguin.
With the eyebrows?
Yes, the yellow eyebrows.
Were you glassing with your new binos like there was no tomorrow, or what?
Oh, yes. I just had the binoculars on. I now have become the traveler that people are like, nerd. I'm like, whatever. Look at me checking out the scenery. You're jealous of my binoculars because it was so awesome to get to have them. I got to zoom in on some super cool stuff.
Nice. Yeah,
Um,
I think it's a flex. I think we
yes,
should make make functional tools cool again.
exactly. So that was an amazing part of the trip. I really loved a hike that I did with Brayden that was called Sealy Tarns, aka Stairway to Heaven, in Aoraki National Park. The colonizer term for it is Mount Cook. Aoraki is the biggest peak. I don't know if it's in all of New Zealand or just on the South Island. That is not what we did. That would be very intense mountaineering. It is covered in a crazy glacier. People do climb it, but not me. But you climb to get a cool view of it. And this track has 2,200 steps. It's not just like walking up a staircase, though. It is pretty intense. It's a trail that they built like kind of wooden steps into, but some of the steps are so high you're like putting your thigh up to your chest to lift yourself up. That was definitely a moment where I thought, okay, some trekking poles could be great for some added balance and leverage, of which I did not have, especially on the way down. That would have been nice.
That's what I was
It
gonna say.
Yeah. It had also just like had either a rain or stuff melted there, and so a lot of the steps were full of water. It would be like if you can picture a wooden plank being set up on its side is the step, and then it's like dirt where you would put your foot, but
Yeah.
that would just be a big old puddle. So I was kind of like balancing on my toes to try to just step on the wood and not be fully stepping in the puddle. It was
Good for
just
the
not.
calves. Good for the butt.
Yeah,
Cool to get to
good.
see, but what would have been way sicker is if you guys went down the stairs Princess Diaries style on a mattress, just vion, vion,
Yeah,
navigating that.
that would be cool until you died.
No, with
Yes.
enough skill, it could be done.
That was one of those hikes where on the way up, me were taking many breaks and just being like, you're just straight uphill. It's not switchbacks where you're kind of like going steadily. You're just climbing, climbing, climbing. And there were definitely moments where I was like, I'm pretty hot and a little bothered right now, but it's so beautiful. Just trying to have a good mindset. But then as in all things, once you get to the top in the end, it's so rewarding and you feel so much better for having done something more difficult than just not, and then ends up being such a cool memory because you achieved something and you got to see this really cool view, and it's always satisfying when you actually put in effort towards something, whether that's physical effort or whatever. And that's
Nice.
where we got to see our first Kia. So then we went to a place when we were on our drive to Milford Sound that there were a ton of Kia, which was really cool. But this was the first one that I got to see, and I was like, oh my gosh, the parrot. They actually have 3 different native types of parrots, but 2 of them are pretty rare, and one of them is flightless. A flightless parrot. Isn't that funny? It's all these flightless birds in New Zealand. um,
That is a very foreign concept for me to picture that. I guess it shouldn't be because I'm a chicken girl, but I'm like regular old birds, a parrot, like a songbird. You're telling me there's songbird style
not
Tweeties that
songbirds.
don't.
They're bigger
So,
birds. They're more like
so
they
all of
remind
them
you
are
of
bigger
old
birds.
little dinosaurs. I mean, they're like chicken sized and bigger. I don't know. I don't think they
Okay.
have any tiny ones. I think those always had to
Okay,
get
I guess
away.
I feel a little more peace with that.
Yeah. Oh, they're so cool and cute. You guys need to just look up some local New Zealand birds because I can't even describe it to you. But we got to see a rifleman on that hike, and it's literally a tiny little puffball of a green bird. It looks like a tiny, fluffy green marshmallow, and they are so cute. Something that's interesting, though, is they do not have hummingbirds there. Out of all those birds, they don't have any hummingbirds.
Well, my property has enough to make up for it because every day since getting home from Bryce Canyon, whenever I'm outside, I am hearing hummingbirds zzz all around me, which is so cool. And I better update the podcast. I've been hoping and praying for this moment to happen again this year. And yesterday I got to see our great horned owl buddy for the first time.
Aw, that's so nice.
I think it's one of the...
I thought I was hearing them while I was at your place, but maybe
I think
not.
you were just hearing the doves.
The doves. Sometimes in the early
they
morning
can trick
when
you.
you hear the doves, you can just think, is that an owl?
Yeah, definitely. But it was pretty cool. I wouldn't have known, but the dogs ran right up past, and actually probably what really spooked him is, I'm not proud of this, but I did yell one no at my dog, Pinkerton, because she went to roll once again in this just hideously horrible poop that belongs to who knows who, that made it so we had to give her a bath 2 days in a row. Obviously it's on me I should figure out managing that, but anyway, then the owl swooped right over and went down the driveway, and then we got to follow it and hang out with it for a little while.
Did the no effectively stop her from going in the poop?
It did, yes.
Well, then sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. I didn't prefer it, but I was like, me saying this to you, you're gonna be a lot happier that I shut you down now than having to get a bath again.
Yeah. Well, there are so many other moments that I had in New Zealand, but we can...
You better tell us something food related.
Well, yes, okay.
Shitty Mexican food, you said.
Yeah, we did not eat their Mexican food because we had been forewarned that was not the move there. Our family that lives over there said that they have never had a good taco or any of that, and they were like, they'll advertise as if they do. They don't. And most Kiwis are like, we don't know any better because they're pretty far from Mexico. So that's what maybe they're like, pretty good burrito. And they said no. But we only had really good food. We had, I was pleasantly surprised because of their affiliation with the UK, where I have had some extremely bland, flavorless food, and also anyone that I've ever heard that has traveled to New Zealand has been like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. Nobody has brought up the food to me before, and usually when somewhere has good food, that comes into the conversation. So
at least
I was
for
like,
us.
Yeah. I was like not really having expectations for that, but then everything we ate was really good. We were staying at Airbnbs, so we did a fair bit of eating in, but the places where we ate out was very tasty, and the food that you buy there, it's just nice because I was like, they don't have an organic section, and then my sister-in-law was like, yeah, because everything's organic, like not all processed food. She said some processed foods, like you'll see a label differentiating if they're organic, but in terms of produce, they have very strict food laws, and they just care a lot about the environment there, and so they do not do the same ag practices as we do, and it pays off in flavor. These carrots, we got a bag of carrots and we were like, oh my gosh, why are they so good? They taste like garden carrots. How like carrots you get from the store are so different than carrots you get from your garden. They were all like sweet, yummy garden carrots. I'm like, okay, thank you. I'm a dirty girl, and I like carrots from the garden because they still taste a little dirty. They like a little there's a little, I'm like, don't even wash it, just pull it out of the dirt and They're
pound
sweet,
it on
but
your
they
jeans for a second.
Yeah, they're sweet, but they have the minerally dirt tang to it, I guess.
You know I love that.
They have these...
Recovered sand eater over here.
They have a fruit called feijoas that were in season, that they're like, fit in your palm if you scooped your hand like that, and are green. I don't know the best way to describe them. When you cut them, the flesh is all like white, and they're very tangy, kind of have the tropical fruit flavor, but with a sourness, like a passion fruit kind of, that you definitely would have really liked. And of course, they are the home of the kiwi fruit, so we got lots of kiwi, including ruby red kiwi, which were pretty cool. That were red when you cut them open. I don't
think I've ever seen that.
I don't.
Yeah,
think
I
I
love
have
golden kiwi.
Yeah,
I love all kiwi.
And then something that is kind of a carryover from Britain, I would say, but they do better here, were pies. They do lots of personal hand pies where they are just a smaller size, and they're all over. Some are, of course, better or worse, but we got good intel on where to get good pies and had some really tasty ones.
Brayden did not get wrapped up in a pie eating competition.
He did not, but I bet he would have crushed. Well, one other activity that I'll tell you about, that this is like not necessarily New Zealand specific, but was so fun, is we went luging, which was basically like the alpine slide, where you take a gondola up in this case, and then there's a chairlift for the luge, and get in these little carts. Brayden said they're like a go-kart, but they're more like a little sled with handles. Like, they're not... it's not like a car. It's like a cart with wheels, and they have these courses, two different, and you get to like control your speed and do it. So unlike the alpine slide in Jackson, and as well, I think that a lot of alpine courses in the States, as far as I know, is just kind of a track that it takes you along.
Yeah.
This is not a track where you're stuck in the track, like you can move, and so we were racing each other, and you can like go around each other, and that just was a very inner child activity that was so fun, that we were just being silly and roaming around each other, and so many people, pretty much everyone else on the track, was being so like cautious and going slow, and then we were all busting through, racing each other. It was pretty silly. That was fun.
Nice.
But the water there
that.
was so blue. It's just crazy. It was so clear. And it was autumn, and the water was very cold, but of course we went in everywhere we went. But whenever the New Zealand like locals would see us, they would be like, "You guys are crazy," and did not understand. And we're like, well, it was fun, it's fun to get in and get a little cold.
Well, bodies of water, just being in a body of water, clearly it calls to some people more than others. I'm not saying I'm like, oh, joy when I step in and it's cold, but once you get in, it's just like truly one of the most heaven on earth feelings to me, is being wrapped up in a body of water. River, ocean, lake, I don't really care. All of those I prefer to a swimming pool, but still a swimming pool can feel good.
No, it was very refreshing. There were definitely, we went a couple of times when it was pretty cold outside, like see your breath cold outside, that we did a little bit of a quicker time because it did feel quite chilly, but it's just, what are you going to do? We can't control what temperature it is, and we're like, we're not going to not get in this water, and cold plunge benefits. But I am so grateful we got to go. I'm having a bit of a rougher time on my return trip with the jet lag. Like I said, the first time, then we just got a good sleep when we arrived there and kind of got over it. Brayden and I are both struggling a little bit more to get back into our routine here. We read that it is typically more difficult to like travel east and get back like from jet lag. I don't exactly understand why that is. I don't know if that's the case or it's like we got back, then we immediately did a big road trip, 24 hours to get back here, and now we're busy jumping back into our routine that we have to do to get ready. But in any case, we'll get through it. I feel underslept right now, but
Yeah.
like we're going to bed
I
at the
feel
right
like
time, but then just not restful, you know?
mhm. I feel like also it could be a little bit different mentally because on one you're starting a vacation and on
Yes.
one you're returning home back to routine, which I think is hard even if you don't change time zones.
Yeah. 100%. I am so grateful for that time, and we're excited to bring you our last few episodes from this sort of format, because then I'll be in Colorado and we'll see, but enjoy this background while it lasts.
Yeah, true. You guys have a great rest of your week. This is the time, we're gonna have to soon be talking about gardening because now we're getting into gardening time and getting flowers and seeds in the ground. And I have beautiful daffodils next to me that my mom brought me from her garden,
Aw,
which is pretty
I can't see
special.
them. They're right out of frame for me, but I love that.
You look, you get these, right? That's what these are. Your little
Ah,
eyes can't tell. But we appreciate you guys for listening and follow us on the Q&R code on Instagram and check out our YouTube if you would like to see our sunshiny faces when we chat together. And you can find us by typing in youtube.com/at the Q&R code. We'll talk to you next week. Goodbye.
goodbye.